Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. I'm glad to see everyone on today. We're going to be talking about SEO strategies, SEO optimization, and really how AI is playing a role in that, as well as the user experience, what is known as UX. All this is meant to basically convert your website clicks, all those website visitors, into actual clients. It's one thing to get people coming to your website, clicking around. It's quite another to actually convert them into new clients, new customers of yours. And so we're going to be talking about some things that will help do that for you. And so I think most of you guys know who I am. If you're new to following me, I've got quite a history in the remodeling industry, real estate development, custom home development, fix and flip properties. Home Remodeler SEO is part of the major associations here in our country, the NAHB and our local Denver HBA chapter, as well as the NKBA and NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. What we do here is really all we do is work with contractors, with remodelers, builders, developers, some other home improvement services as well, roofers, windows companies. But that's all we do day in and day out. We eat, sleep, breathe on how can we improve the results and drive more qualified leads for the home improvement industry. So that's our goal. We're not that typical generalist agency out there that tries to claim they're an expert working with every single industry out there. I say that and I put emphasis on that because you really can't be an expert at all the industries out there. You really need to understand the customer avatar and what that customer is thinking about, what they're shooting for and working with a remodeling company. What are their fears or frustrations, maybe past experiences that they've had that have shaped their worldview of what it's like to work with contractors, maybe good or bad. And you really got to be able to dial that messaging in, and you really need to have that messaging dialed into all your content, whether that be your website pages, your service pages, your blogs, press releases that you should be putting out there. Other content, your Google business posts, your social media post, you really need to have that dialed in order to attract the right type of client that you're going to enjoy working with. So that's just kind of a little blurb on how we approach this business, and really, our goal is just to be the best we can be at SEO, search engine optimization. How can we make client websites stand out and become one of the top ranked websites on Google and the other search engines, so people are calling you instead of your competitors? And so we're going to kind of dive into why website optimization matters here in 2025, but also, as we go forward into the digital age, because we know that SEO is ever changing. I mean, every day Google just rolled out yet another update. So we're going to wait and see what kind of effects shake out from that. But that just happened. And then we have AI, the real elephant in the room. Artificial intelligence is really shaping the digital landscape. It's shaping websites. It's shaping how people find websites, the searches they do. So there's a lot going on there, and it's a lot to keep up on. So let's dive into that as well. We all kind of know that the definition, website optimization is the process of improving the performance and the usability and conversion rate of your site through technical issues and strategies, through your content, and also through design updates. With Google's AI-driven ranking systems, those zero-click search trends that we're seeing, where the AI snippets are at the top of Google right now, instead of any websites or the Google Maps or even ads. Now it's AI at the top. And so that's going to be setting different expectations for users, higher expectations. And so it really brings us to that point where website optimization is no longer optional. It's really a competitive necessity in today's digital landscape. And so let's talk about that 2025 landscape, what we're dealing with when it comes to these and changes with AI. One of the biggest things that you really need to be paying attention to are your core web vitals. These are, if you think about the human body, you think about your heart rate, you think about your glucose levels and your blood pressure, things like that. Those are your core vitals. And so for a website and for your digital presence, one of the things that you need to be paying attention to are Google's updated set of metrics that measure the real world user experience for page loading speed, for the interactivity and that UX that we talked about, and also visual stability. These are the SEO metrics you really need to be paying attention to, and these are all in your Google Search Console. So we're going to be talking about that a little more, but really make sure you're getting into your Google Search Console and looking at metrics. There are new thresholds that emphasize really sub 1.8 to 2 second load times, and really faster interaction readiness, where your website's loading everything and ready to interact with that visitor from a content perspective, or loading images, or maybe loading those forms or buttons that are really going to drive more conversions. And we'll talk about conversions as well. There's also a stronger focus on the interaction to next pane, abbreviated INP, as well as cumulative layout shift improvements. And so this really has to do with how fast is your website loading? Does it load as you go down the page? Does it try to load everything all at once, which slows down your page loading speed? Are you putting videos on your website, or are you just using embed codes, which play the video from the source, which is much quicker? So those are some things to think about. I know it gets a little geeky, a little technical, but let's just dive into some examples here that might show us a little bit about these core website metrics. Kind of look at a website that's performing poorly in terms of Google's algorithm first. And so here's what a poor performing website might look like in Google's testing platform. You can go to Google Page Speed Insights or Google's mobile friendly tool, either one of those. And those are going to give you all these insights that we're looking at here. And so this is looking at the page loading speed on a mobile device. You can run this for mobile and desktop. I just want to say I don't pay much attention to best practices in SEO. We want those to be in green. We want those to be an A grade, 90 or better. But they're for Google. They're very basic test. In other words, so it's like taking a 5-question multiple choice test versus going to more high powered SEO platforms that it's going to give you way more info. But what we do use this tool for is page speed loading, because that's one of Google's algorithm factors. That's also a big factor in user experience. How slow is your website really loading? And is that going to affect that user experience? Is that going to have people bouncing back into the search results because your website is loading so quickly? So, when you look at these results here, it's taken 2.5 seconds, 2.6, to just load the first images, the first content paint, we call it. And then to get to a full content paint, we're looking at 6 seconds. And one of the stats that I always remember is a website that goes from 1 to 6 seconds in load speed will result in 106% bounce rate. That's quite significant. You're bouncing, half your prospective clients rate there. So these are the things that can really hurt you from a user experience standpoint. And then Google looks at that user experience and says, well, if they're not having a good user experience, our algorithms, our spider bots that are crawling the website aren't having a good user experience. People are going back into the search results to just go to another website because yours is maybe loading so slowly or so poorly, or maybe images aren't loading and you get that little X, that little blue X, and then a blank canvas, no image there. That's going to affect how you rank in the algorithm, because Google's saying this is not the experience that people really want. So these are important things to look at. Um, Here's kind of a deeper dive into these individual metrics where it tells you how what are the red flags that you need to look at. What are some orange flags that hey you could fix these, but it's not as imperative as the real red flags. How you can save some seconds here. And, it's like F1 racing. I love Formula One racing. These guys from beginning to from first place to last place is usually less than a minute after 3 hours of racing. And so they're really talking about how can they pick up a half a second per lap, maybe a tenth of a second, but over, 50 laps, 70 laps, depending on what circuit they're running. That's going to add up. And that's where the races are won and lost. And it's the same thing for websites. You can pick up a half second here, a second here to really get that page loading speed moving up. That's really what you're looking for, those small little victories, in other words. And so if you break these down, uh, you can look at, this is that first one, document request latency. And so what they're talking about is reducing your server response time by using a good host, preferably a private host. Like we have our own private server that we host client websites on because we don't want to put it out there on some generic shared GoDaddy web server that's shared by tens of thousands of websites, maybe some, more nefarious or nasty websites that, gambling sites and things like that. These are all going to drag down your Google score. But if you're sharing your server with thousands of sites, it's also going to drag down your speed as well. So that's why you want good hosting, hopefully on a private server. You pay more for that, or our clients, and that's built into our pricing and the marketing that we do. You also want to have clean code to make sure you don't have a bunch of gibberish that Google's not really reading very well. That's going to really help you clean. When you run these tests, you're going to see some of those JavaScript or CSS code errors. That's what we're talking about, cleaning up that code. A good web developer will write clean code. It's like doing remodeling. You might have a really good remodeler that really trues up and squares their cabinets. Everything's in line. Everything's perfect. The doors are open and closing. The soft closed doors are working. The hinges are all aligned. But you also may have a substandard remodeler where it looks good from a distance, but when you start getting up close and making that inspection, then you start seeing all these little details that as a homeowner, they're going to see that. And once they see that once, they can't unsee it. They're going to see that every single day they open that cabinet. So we're talking about the fine details here. And just like you guys are focused on the fine details and doing exquisite craftsmanship, that's what you need to be focused on with your website as well. Clean up that code, avoiding those extra elements you don't need. And then when we talk about like improving image delivery, not don't put those big print ready, poster ready images on your website. Shrink them down, what we call compression, image compression. Shrink them down so that they load really quick because they're still gonna be fine. We're not talking about shrinking them down till they're like some thumbnail you can't even see, or they become blurry or whatever. They're okay for the website, for the internet. Now, would you want to shrunk an image like that, print it into a 8 by 10 glossy or a poster? No, of course not. But you also don't want to be using those for your website either. So this is where you can really think about, picking up some small victories, just going through each of these things one by one, and it will matter for your user experience, and it will matter for how Google rates you in their algorithm. And then, here's another, talking about render blocking request, JavaScript. Again, we're talking about code that just doesn't have good delivery. It's going to affect your loading speed. A lot of this can be done through WordPress plugins. If you're on WordPress, and I highly recommend it, it's the easiest, best content content management platform out there, especially for people that aren't experienced with WordPress. You can still go in there. Anyone can go in there and upload upload a new blog or upload an image, change some text. So it makes it really easy. But they also have a lot of plugins that help you clean this stuff up. They have an image compression plugin that will automatically reduce your image size before it tries to load onto a page. So it's really great to use WordPress for those reasons alone. If you have a website that's been custom coded, now you got to go to your web developer and fix everything line by coded line, and it makes it really hard. And those are things that you always have to keep up on too. Every time your website's updating and you're adding new things, it might break something else. So you always got to be looking at that. So like when we run those page speed tests, we're doing those every month or at least every quarter. Once we get a feel for, what kind of changes are being made. But you can't just say, hey, I got 90 and I'm good, and not look at it for 2 years. It will have sunk down into 70s, 60s, maybe into the 50s based on updates and changes you've made to your website along the way. And then here I want to show you kind of what a good website looks like from the metrics perspective. And so now you see everything's 90 or above. We got a couple hundreds in there, but this is what you're shooting for. You guys are A players. We're A players. Like we're not going to just settle for a B grade or a C grade or especially that F grade that we saw earlier. I think the score was 59. Like we want to make sure that we're in the 90s, preferably 100. But sometimes to get to 100, you mess with something and then it breaks something else, and then you fix that and then it breaks something else. So everything's all interconnected on the back end of your website. So just getting above 90 is going to serve you well. Let's go ahead and talk about the rise of AI personalization and predictive user experience tools. And so what we're talking about here are websites that use artificial intelligence to tailor layouts, to tailor your content and your offers, based on visitor behavior in real time. It's very dynamic, and so we're looking at how does predictive user experience tools anticipate user needs before they even click. And so examples of what I'm talking about here are, like AI-driven recommended services or content reordering on showing what's going to be better content that's getting more engagement, as well as adaptive calls to action, what we call CTAs. So things that you can do today to really think about that is try an AI personalization tool like Optimizely. Mutiny's another one, and just see how it might be able to personalize your website or your landing page or your offers. Set up a test, and then you end up showing different CTAs based on the traffic source, and then you can find out which call to action, which button is working better. It's typical marketing. It's marketing 101. It's A/B split testing. Change one thing, leave it the same on the split test, and then see which one works better, and then do it again and again and again with new changes, and then eventually you find the best optimum website, button, landing page, whatever it may be, because you've went through all those tests and you took the best one, kept it, and then you move forward, and then you do the next test, A/B split test. Keep that best result, move forward, and so every time you're adding the best result for your landing page or website page, call to action button, offer that you're putting out there on ads, whatever it may be. You're always getting the best result because you're always putting the best option forward because you've tested everything individually. And so that's what we do, especially with ads. You've got to do that every day, at least every couple days, every week, to make sure that you're getting the best results. And so let's just kind of look at some of these examples of predictive user experience so you kind of know what I'm talking about. First is Google auto search. We see this all the time, the auto suggest. When you're starting to type in kitchen remodel and it says, well, kitchen remodeling or kitchen remodeling ideas or the cost or the before and after or the ideas or near me. These are all auto suggest items from Google, but how do you use this is the real question. And this is where this really comes into play for you in optimizing your website and your overall brand and digital presence is look at the auto suggest items. And like one of them, let's say kitchen remodel before and after. And so on your web page, you can say, here are some of our kitchen remodel before and after jobs, images, pictures, whatever. And so now you are kind of telling Google, hey, we fit that mold. For that auto suggest item, we have that page. Why don't you rank our page? And all of them work that way. Kitchen remodel ideas on a budget. Maybe that becomes the title of your article. Or your blog post, or that web page that that talks about budgeting for a kitchen remodel. So, when you look at these Google auto suggest ideas, make sure you're thinking about that in terms of how do you use this in your content, in the things that you're putting out there on the internet, because that's how you connect the dots between the technical AI kind of predictive UX part of it with the actual real world. How do I put this on my website and draw more visitors to my website? And then, like autofill, how it might, it automatically starts to autofill everything for you. That's just AI that's been capturing, this information every time you're going to websites. So it already knows what your address, email, payment details are, things like that. So that is a predictive user experience. That's AI, doing that stuff. We think of AI as some crazy stuff, maybe writing blogs, or Optimus, the robot that Tesla's inventing, and I should say perfecting. It's well beyond invention phase at this point. But there's all kinds of AI user examples here. Another one is that the online store recommended a product that you just happen to be searching for. Well, hey, imagine that. We know that it feels kind of creepy, right? But that's just the internet following you around, those retargeting ads, or you've went to that website already maybe, and it knew you looked at that and wants you to go back there. I mean, I go to Amazon and I go to buy something. It always says, "Hey, you've still got these items over here on your wish list. Have you decided, to buy these yet?" Basically, is what it's trying to do. So that's all AI. That's all learning your consumer behaviors, your buying patterns, the websites you go to, all that stuff is predictive user experience type of items. Let's jump into, why mobile first is kind of turning into mobile only for many niches and industries out there. And so, to define this, a design philosophy prioritizing mobile device experiences, which is now shifted to designing exclusively for mobile users in some industries. So that's kind of the official definition. What this really breaks down to is the fact that over 80% of home service leads are coming from mobile devices in certain markets. Not every geographical market out there, but we are seeing that, and there is data out there that is, that backs that up. Most people use their mobile device anyways. They're working, and they can't, don't want to get on the company computer, or maybe they're on their commute on the light rail, or a train or something, a bus. Maybe they're driving and they've got their mobile device and they're just kind of scrolling, whatever, they're stuck at a stoplight doing this. So most people are using mobile devices to search. People work all day. Last thing they want to do is come home and sit on their desktop computer. They've got family, dinner, sports, piano recitals for their kids, things like that. So some of these industries are really switching to kind of a mobile first prioritization, and really they're adapting these mobile only wireframes first, and then retrofitting that for desktop. So what I mean by that is they're designing their mobile site first, and then adapting that to what the desktop website's going to look like. Usually it happens in reverse. It's like build this website on desktop and now convert it to mobile. A lot of that is changing just because of user behavior and the rise, ever increasing usage of mobile for Google searches, internet searches. And so, what you want to do today is test your site on your phone right now. Look and see how it shows up. Go through every page. Make sure that you've got your calls to action above the fold. In other words, mobile screen's small, so make sure they don't have to scroll to find anything. The first things they want to be able to find are right there. Here's the menu button. Here's the contact button. If you just want to go ahead and reach out and touch us right now, let's do that. Let's cut to the chase. Reach out and call us, because that's what we all want, right? We want phone calls. That's how you turn those into design consultations, and that's how you book jobs and close more revenue. And then, you've got other buttons that, maybe a text button for chat, things like that. But you just want to make sure these are all buttons that are they're user friendly, that get them to where they want to go. They're not too small that, people's fat thumbs can get on there and push that button without, clicking the image or some other link or something that you didn't really want to go to. But really key to kind of keep all that stuff above the fold. Same thing with desktop. You want all the really juicy stuff right there when you land on that website without people having to scroll. Give them a form, give them a call to action, give them an offer, give them that call to action button. Tell them what you do right out of the gate. Don't make them scroll. I see some websites where people come to me and they think they need a redesign, and it's like, you definitely need a redesign. Their whole website, when you go to it, when you land on it, it's just one big picture. Like the header image is just so big. That's all it is. That's not good web design. And if you're designing your website like that, most people are thinking, "Wow, or is my project going to be designed like that too?" There may not be any carryover. You're a great designer, you're a great remodeler. The fact that your website's not very good shouldn't reflect on your remodeling skills, but people are going to naturally associate a really good website with a really good remodeling company, and vice versa too. If you're still using a website, two-page website from the Stone Ages, people are going to say, why are you not with the program? Is this how you're running your entire company and your design, your remodeling, and your cutting edge things, technology that maybe you're putting into your new homes and things? So whether it's fair or not, this is how people look at it. So definitely behooves you to make sure you've got your website, your mobile website really, really dialed in from a user experience perspective. And then there's also the growing role of voice search optimization. And so, by definition, this is optimizing your content so that it ranks well for the voice activated queries that people are submitting, like, using Google Assistant or Alexa or Siri. So instead of typing in kitchen remodeler near me, they may type in something more particular, like, which is the best kitchen remodeling company near me. It's a conversational query. It's not just kitchen remodeler near me or just kitchen remodel. It's, where can I find the best kitchen remodeling company that is close to my location? So you're talking through this search query. It's a conversational tone, but it still has that keyword targeting, but it also is going to be optimized for the featured snippets, those AI snippets that we're seeing at the top of Google search results. So, the better you can optimize your content for conversational queries, the better chance you have of actually showing up in those AI snippets. We recently had someone that came to us. They said they found us on Grok. They just asked, who's the best marketing company for remodelers, and we happen to show up. That's not by happenstance. It's because that's the way we're optimizing our content. We're trying to answer those queries with the way we write our content so that we show up there first. That's where search is heading. Google search, Google Maps results, optimized websites, those things aren't going away. But AI is really going to start taking a front seat based on the way you structure your content. And so, some things that you can do today are add an FAQ section with natural conversational language Q&A to your website if you don't already have that. So, here's a great example where you can use some of these ideas here. Rewrite them. You don't want, I would say copy them, because I don't, I want everyone to succeed. But if you have the same exact content on your website as someone else, you will be penalized for duplicate content in Google's algorithm. So don't plagiarize any other website, especially don't, plagiarize your competitors or similar websites, but also don't plagiarize yourself. Don't use the same content on multiple pages of your website, because that's not going to impress Google nor your average consumer that's coming to your website. So, try adding these FAQ sections to really talk in a way that's conversational and not, too search-like, brief, in other words. target those long tail conversational queries. Like I said, don't talk in a way of, best windows. Tell me, use a query like, questions that we hear often. What's the best residential window company near me for new windows? Something like that. That's what people are thinking. That's how they're putting in to voice search. And so that's how you might structure your question. And then of course your answer can, kind of regurgitate those keywords back with a fulfilling answer that answers that question precisely. So think about using some FAQ sections like that. That's going to really help with voice search. And then, when we talk about what's been the focus for SEO in 2025 and kind of will continue to be the dominant themes going into 2026, one of the biggest ones is Google's algorithm acronym that really is the focus of their algorithm, and that's EAT. And that stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. This is what really guides Google's algorithm. It's kind of their expanded ranking framework. And now it's factoring in that AI transparency, also disclosing when AI is used in content. If you're using AI images on your website, one, don't just quit doing that. Show your own photos. And two, Google will show readers that this is an AI image because readers don't want to be fooled. They don't want to go to your website, see these exquisite kitchens that you didn't build. They're just AI images, and so you're deceiving your customer, your potential customers, and so that's not fair, right? And so Google wants to make sure that that is labeled. So you really want to steer away from AI in your content and in your especially images. You really want to show that you have expertise with that service you're offering. You have experience in the neighborhoods that you have listed, all the suburbs that you have listed on your website that have their own location pages, which I've talked about this in many previous SEO workshops. Make sure you have location pages, separate pages for each of the areas you serve. Don't use duplicate content again. But what you're doing is you're building that experience factor, you're building that expertise, and then you have those clear authorship signals that boost search visibility by the articles you write, you being the author of it, the Google reviews you're getting, that builds trust, and you got those featured on your website as well. So you really want to think about how can I build all those factors: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust into my content, into all my web pages, into my social posts, everything I'm doing. That's what's really going to drive more success for you in terms of the Google algorithm. And so, how do you optimize for zero-click searches? Many searches are now answered directly via Google in those featured snippets or what they call AI overviews, and those are at the top of the search pages. And so, optimization for those means targeting those questions that you keep seeing repeated over and over, structuring those answers in the same way. We talked about that with the FAQs, and then using schema markup so that your content appears, higher in Google search. So let's talk about each one of those. Identifying zero-click opportunities. You can use tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs to find the keywords that are really triggering those featured snippets, those people also ask boxes that you see, and the knowledge panels that are on the side of the right side of the search results. And you can also structure your content to show up in those featured snippets. So, answer questions in the first 40 to 60 words, and then you can expand in detail on that. But really get to the heart of the matter as soon as you open that sentence, as soon as you open up that answer that you're typing in. That tells Google exactly what that page is about, what that answer is about. And we always say, get your keywords in the first sentence of every page so that Google knows what that page is about. And then you can also use lists or tables or just really strong keyword optimized headings for more clarity. Again, Google's going to see that first. And then schema markup, that's, implement your FAQs, your how to, and then all that local business schema, which is really all the information about your business. It's just really the coded information instead of what you see on the front side of the website. Schema is going in more detail, and it's what's on the back side of the website that the Google bots are crawling. And Google's going to see that. Now it knows, it can display your answers directly to the search engine result pages. And then optimizing for voice search, we talked about that. Just write in a natural conversational language that mirrors how people speak their queries out loud. We type very briefly, right? But when we think about what we're going to say, we're not just going to say kitchen remodel. Like we could do that to Siri into our phone, but most likely, as people, as humans with human behavior, we're gonna ask that question just like we were asking somebody, and Siri's gonna know still what we're talking about and give us the best results in Google, hopefully. And then make sure you're keeping your content fresh, updating your high performing pages regularly, so your answers, your content remain relevant, and it's also accurate to Google's latest updates as well. They always have updates, so you always want to make sure you are always staying accurate there. And then internal linking strategies that improve your rankings and your conversions. Smart internal linking distributes page authority, guides visitors toward high value pages, and improves that session duration. And so your linking should be intentional, not just random. Let's just link this page to this page. Like, let's say you're doing kitchen remodels, and a page you might link to would be kitchen remodel budgets, and then that might link to kitchen remodel cost, which might talk about a budget remodel versus a high-end remodel. Like, you want it all to be what we call pillared. They're just pillars that build on each other. It's backlinks that are doing that, internal links, in other words. And so to do that, you can map your site's content hubs, group your related pages all under that core pillar of pages, your main services, and then those links flow naturally and support the main content. So you got your services, and then you break those services down, and each service gets broken down into its subtopics. It's hugely important for the way you structure your website. I rarely see that when people come to us with a website, they're wanting better SEO than what they're getting from their generic agency that's just not getting them results. And that's one of the main things I see is the content's not there, the structure definitely is not there. Those are things that you can really fix and make an impact with. And then talking about those internal links, use descriptive anchor text instead of having click here, a link on your page. Use a relevant keyword, like if the question says, how much does a kitchen remodel cost, and you say click here to find out. You can do that, but the anchor text for that, what you tell Google, is the anchor text. What it's going to see, the anchor text, instead of being click here, will be kitchen remodeling cost. And that's going to point you to the blog that has the blog post with that cost breakdown, or maybe to your cost estimator that you have on your website. We have a lot of websites using cost estimators so that people can kind of get an idea. We get an idea what it's going to cost. They play around with it. They come up with some questions. In other words, they're just spending more time on your website. They're engaging with you, engaging with your brand, with your website, and hopefully that's going to lead to more phone calls as well. And then you also want to have links from high authority pages first. The pages with the most traffic and the ones that are getting the most backlinks should really link to the important but less visible pages, so that it can pass some SEO value. So your homepage gets a lot of value, right? So have it linked to some pages that aren't getting as much traffic, and that way that homepage can pass some of its SEO authority to some of those interior pages as well. And then I always say to follow the 3-click rule. Ensure that every important page is reachable within 3 clicks from the home page in order to improve that user experience and that crawl efficiency. You don't want people to have to click more than 3 times to get to what they want. It should just be 1 or 2 clicks, really. But I see that a lot. Like instead of a contact form, they're like, click here and then click here, and then it finally gets to the contact page. Instead of just having that form right on every page, maybe in the footer, maybe up top, maybe on the sidebar, something like that. And then Uh, Review and update your links quarterly. Use tools like Screaming Frog or Ahrefs to find your broken links, to find those orphan pages that are just hanging out there in the open. Any of those missed linking opportunities might give you a little bit more authority, a fresh update to your website without doing like a whole redesign. You're just kind of fixing the broken links, fixing the missing pages, the broken 401 directs, things like that. That's going to really help if you can keep that on schedule. And then for local SEO updates, your Google Business profile is now integrating with AI summaries. And so now these local businesses and these GBP pages can have AI generated summaries that show up in Google search results. And then they pull your reviews in, they pull your post content in, they pull in the site content that you have, on various pages of your website. And so optimizing your GBP content is really, really key for visibility. A lot of people don't really connect the dots, but your GBP really works in synergy with your website, and your GBP post should always be going back to your website, interlinking, and then those web pages further internal link. So that's all tied together. So make sure you're really thinking about your content strategy in that regard and how everything is working together. And the one thing I want to talk about is conversion rate optimization. That's a really important concept. In the Field of Dreams movie, it was build it and they will come, and that's great. Maybe you build a website and they will come to it. Most likely, you're going to need some really good rankings in the search results to get people to come there, to get people to find your website. But the key is when they come, what do they do? Do they convert or not? Have they called you? Have they submitted a web form? And so that's what we mean by conversion optimization. We want to optimize so that your conversion rates are higher. You might have 1,000 visits, but you only got one phone call. Something's wrong with that conversion rate. And so that's where you can optimize some different things. And what we're really talking about here is using these, AI-driven tools, these A/B split tests on how you can interpret results faster so that when these new CRO platforms, test platforms, are using AI to run these multivariate tests and provide they're giving you statistically significant results, in days of watching traffic, or maybe just, to analyze your website, it's going to take, less than 30 seconds, but it's not going to take weeks or months. And so this really speeds up decision making for you in terms of how do you want to start making changes to your website, your content, your call to action buttons, to get them to work better. So, you've got Evolve AI is a leader in this space. It doesn't run just one A/B split test. It uses AI to test dozens of variations simultaneously, and so it learns in real time. And then Optimizely is another really good one I like. It's an enterprise grade platform that uses AI to automatically reallocate traffic to higher performing variants while tests are still running. And then there's Tasty, which is a kind of more of a personalization plus AI powered experimentation platform. So what it does is it tests multiple variants at once and then uses that predictive algorithm to kind of speed up that decision making. So this might be, sound a little technical to some of you on here, maybe not so foreign to others I know on this webinar that are really trying to grasp and get a hold of AI. But this is not complicated. Don't be scared of the big words or the concept. Just try these tools and say, hey, test this website, test this button, and just follow, just let it do its thing, and then you can just interpret it, and then just follow those suggestions and just make those suggestions. They're giving you the right answers. In other words, they're giving you the cliff notes, the cheat sheet. So just follow it once you run those tests. And then, smart CTAs, they adapt based on user behavior. So there's calls to action that change the wording, change the color of a button maybe, or maybe change the placement based on user history or session behavior. These are going to dramatically improve your click-through rates. And so some examples like HubSpot's website and its whole marketing hub, it offers a feature called Smart Content, which dynamically changes what's shown to each visitor. For example, a first-time visitor might see, a page or a button that says "Get your free remodeling guide," but then when that visitor comes back for the next time, now they might see "Book your free consultation." So they know that they've already shown you the guide. You may have already downloaded the guide. So it doesn't want to show you that again. That's not going to be very effective for conversions, right? So now it's saying, hey, we know you got the guide. Why don't you go ahead and book that consultation? And same thing, like a visitor that browses, kitchen remodels on their website might see a different button that says "See our kitchen remodeling portfolio." So, I mean, this is AI. I mean, it pretty much knows everything. It's basically ingested the entire internet, and it can give you answers based on having all of that knowledge. So it's like talking to the smartest person in the world who knows every answer to every question. We know that that's not possible. That's in the realm of gods and deities. But what we're really talking about here is getting those answers from AI based on all the stuff it's seeing and everything that it knows. And maybe some of it's right, maybe some of it's wrong, but at least it gives you some thinking and creativity outside the box, some talking points to really kick around and say, how can we use this better? And one of the great AI tools that we've been using for years are called heat maps, or sometimes people call them scroll maps. And basically, this is just taking analytics and turning it into action. So, visual tools that like these show where users click, where they're moving their mouse, where do they stop scrolling on the page, how far do they go down the page, and this helps identify the friction points and the sticking points and the content gaps of what you got going on your website. So it's really cool to see these heat maps because it shows you where people are really clicking, where are the hot spots, where are the spots on your website that are really, really getting all the activity. And then you can start optimizing for those spots and maybe start using some dynamic CTA and button changing there, like we just talked about, for what they might actually be looking for. So these are all great tools. Experiment with one at a time, see which tools you like best, and see what changes that they're making and how they're improving your results. Will really go a long way into increasing your visibility online. And then when we really want to dive into AI and automation directly into optimizing your website. So one thing that we're talking about in that regard are chatbots that kind of have a conversational memory for lead nurturing. AI chatbots now remember returning visitors. They're picking up those conversations where they left off, and then they're providing personalized follow-ups. So an example would be, imagine, say, a homeowner visits your remodeling website asking about kitchen upgrades. A week later, they come back, and instead of starting from scratch, your AI chatbot says, "Hey, welcome back. Last time you asked about kitchen remodels. Do you want to see our latest cabinet designs or book a free consultation?" Like, that's just amazing that, it knows that and it guides you right back into that conversation, right back to where you want to go. Think about it this way. If your website's doing that and your competitor's not, guess who's going to win that race? You are. You're going to be completely dialed in with your customers. They're going to like that your website is performing almost like a human in terms of conversation and memory. They're going to give you a call. You're going to win that phone call. You're going to win that design consultation. And then AI-powered product and service recommendations. Predictive algorithms suggest services or content based on previous user behavior. So this helps increase the upsell and cross-sell potential. So an example of that is a visitor that reads a blog on, say, bathroom tile trends. The site's AI recognizes their interest and automatically suggests something like, "You may also like our bathroom remodeling gallery," or it might recommend a discounted vanity upgrade package that you have built in to your algorithm, into your chatbot algorithm. You don't have to come out with that discount rate on your page, but you can build that into your chatbot conversation. So that's pretty cool too. And then also auto personalized landing pages for different traffic sources. Pages that, adapt headlines, they adapt the imagery that you're showing or the offers that you're displaying, depending on whether a visitor came from Google Ads or maybe they came from social media or maybe they came from one of your email marketing campaigns. So, an example, someone clicks your Google ad for luxury kitchen remodels, for instance. And then they land on your landing page for kitchen remodels, and it's showcasing premium kitchen designs, obviously, not a budget remodel. And so then another person comes from Facebook where you promoted budget friendly updates. And so their landing page is going to highlight the affordable kitchen remodel options. Same website, a different tailored experience based on where that person was coming from and the offer that actually drove them to your website. So that's some pretty cool stuff. Definitely want to really think about how you can adapt that to your website. And then I just want to go through some common mistakes and how to avoid them before we close out here. And so one of the biggest ones is just slow loading speeds. Why that's a problem is, every second of delay can drop conversions by 4 to 7% minimum. And then it could just get worse from there. In 2025, visitors really are expecting pages to load in under 1.8 seconds. That's a stat that's out there. So believe me, slow speeds will hurt both your SEO and your user trust. And then, of course, it's going to hurt your conversions. So think about that. And then, like I said, how to avoid that, run your core web vitals test in Google PageSpeed Insights. You can also use GT metrics to identify some of those bottlenecks. Optimize your images with next gen formats like AVIF or WebP2. Minimize that JavaScript and that custom CSS. You can use tree shaking or code splitting to load in only what's needed. Again, we're kind of getting a little technical here, but you can talk to your web developer about that. Say, hey, well, we got a slow load speed. How are you going to fix it? See if they actually know how to fix it. Maybe they don't. Leverage a content delivery network for global load balancing. That's again, it gets a little geeky, so don't want to go down too many rabbit holes here. But what we're trying to do is it's just making sure that things are loading quickly. That implement lazy loading so that off-screen images and videos and things they only load when needed. They're not going to drag down your loading speed. So we kind of call it lazy loading because it's not needed all the time. So don't load it because it just slows down that first website load when someone comes to your website for the first time. And then, unclear or weak calls to action is really a big problem too. It's a problem because that call to action or CTA, it's a bridge between a consumer's interest and the action that you want them to take. So if it's weak or vague or even hidden, calls to action, these are going to kill your conversions. And so when we think about that, like, book a call today is better than contact us, or search discounts, or view our kitchen portfolio, things like that, instead of see more. And so what we're talking about here is just, kind of getting a better descriptive words in your calls to action into your buttons that draw people in, that increase their curiosity, in other words. And so how you can avoid some of this is, make sure your calls to action are visible, use contrasting colors, and really try to place them above the fold. I've read that orange is the best converting button for button colors on websites. Our colors are orange and blue, so that works out well for us. You may not want to go that route, but something to consider. You can, again, test that, A/B split test it. Also, be more specific. Like I said, instead of that learn more, really, get your free estimate or see remodeling costs to drive them to a blog post that really goes into more detail on remodeling costs, or drives them to that new price estimator that you've got built into your website. And also limit choices. Too many CTAs on one page creates too many decisions, what we call decision fatigue. It's like, wow, which button do I click on? Oh, did I click on that button? How do I get back? And so you don't want to just spread, call to action buttons all over your page. And then make sure you test the what the button says, what we call the CTA copy, and the placement of that button. Use your AI-driven A/B split testing tools for data-backed improvements. You can say, hey, the button worked way better up here than it did down here, and so that's going to increase engagement and increase those conversion rates. And then make sure you're aligning CTAs with visitor intent. Service pages should have a request a quote kind of button. Blog pages should have download the guide. It's directly what you want them to do. It's directly what that page is about. So make sure you get that dialed in as well. And then I want to mention an inaccessible design. An inaccessible site will exclude up to 20% of users, and it's going to increase your legal risk under the ADA compliance rules. Google does reward ADA accessible websites in the ranking, so really give that some consideration because there are legal ramifications by not having a compliant website so that people with vision disabilities can move around on your website and be able to enjoy your website just like anyone else could. And so, how to avoid that, just, follow the WCAG 2.2 guidelines, which are the new updated guidelines that ensure your color contrast is there, keyboard navigation is dialed in for that person, and then screen reader compatibility as well. And then you also do the descriptive alt text for all your images. That's kind of behind the scenes so that Google knows what it's showing that person. Make sure you label all your form fields, avoid those placeholder only instructions, provide captions for all your videos and transcripts for your audio content or your video content to let people know what it is that they're looking at or what they're supposed to be hearing. And then keep testing that with your accessibility tools like Wave, WAVE, or Axe Dev Tools, AXE Dev Tools, so that you're catching these issues before you're actually launching your website. You don't want to have an ADA compliant website where everything's broken and not working. That's going to make someone even more mad and maybe want to sue you. And they do sue people for this. It's basically extortion. It's the bottom feeding attorneys that go after your site and say, hey, if you give us 10,000 or 20,000, we'll just go away. It's really just legal extortion. It's a shame, but that it happens, but it does. And so you just want to protect yourself. And then make sure you don't ignore those local SEO opportunities. For service-based businesses, local search is the highest intent traffic that you're going to get, better than any other search from ads or coming from Facebook or anywhere. It's that local search. And so if you're invisible locally, you're losing customers every day to other competitors. So like I said, really get your GBP dialed in and make sure that you're really putting out some good content, you're making some good posts, and that GBP page, is optimized for your, the description, all the services, all the areas that you serve, all that. And so, first thing is claim and optimize that Google business profile with accurate name, address, and phone number. And then make sure you have high quality photos of your projects and your team. And most importantly, keep uploading these on a regular basis. Don't just upload a bunch and say, I'm good. The more you upload photos, the more you're going to stay relevant in Google's mind. All things being equal, the remodeler that uploads more photos than his competitor is going to win that game. All other things being equal. And so, the other thing is to collect more reviews. Again, all other things being equal, the competitor that has more reviews typically is going to rank higher. So make sure you're getting as many reviews as possible, and make sure you respond to all those reviews, negative or positive, respond to them. If it's a negative review, try to take it offline. Sorry to hear you had a bad experience. We will be following up with you ASAP, whatever. We'll be following up with you. Don't dispute that review unless it's, just basically a fake review. It's just, we've had one of those before where it's just, complete fallacy, lies, and so you feel you have to respond to that on offline because you know that respond to it online because you know offline that that person is not a reasonable person. They're not going to have a conversation with you. So you got to respond online to that. But really, really key to respond. And then, like I said earlier, use that local market schema so that when Google crawls your website, it knows all about your locations and services by the code that it's reading, not necessarily by the content that it's scrolling through on your website. And then create that hyper localized content. And what I mean by that is those city specific service pages that I talked to you about, neighborhood guides that really talk about what's the happenings that are going on. You can make posts about that, show Google that you're really in tune with what's going on in your community. It shows that you're involved in your community, you're interactive, you're engaging. Again, all things being equal, the remodeler that does that is going to win out over the remodeler that doesn't. And then those blog posts, make sure that they're targeting your local search queries. When you go back to that Google Suggest that we did earlier, make sure your blog posts are hitting each one of those. Maybe a couple of those keywords in the same blog post, or maybe a different blog post for each one of those Google Auto Suggest queries. And so those are some of the things that you can really do to avoid some of the common mistakes that we're seeing all the time. Those are some really key tips. And if you implement some of this stuff, you will see a difference. So I hope you do. Um, Let me know if you have any questions. Reach out to me. We're at about an hour now, so I want to make sure I don't go over on time. But reach out if you want to talk more about website optimization, how AI is affecting things. We're going to keep doing webinars on AI and really helping to advance your knowledge base and helping you rank higher. We're always here. I hope you've got some good value from this webinar. I love SEO. I love trying to figure it out and reverse engineer what Google's all about. Gets a little nerdy, a little geeky at times. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody, eyes glazing over anything. I know we've got a lot of people on today, and I really appreciate some of the feedback that I've gotten. But hope you got some great value, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing you on the next webinar then next month. Until then, you guys have a great holiday weekend, and we'll talk to you next time around. See ya.